Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, tonight we are filming our Veterans Day special. And it's going to be a multi-part series in which we're going to discuss all of America's conflicts, all the United States' conflicts. When we think of our conflicts, we think of the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and then the War on Terror. That's a tiny fraction of our conflicts. When history gets recorded, the minor ones get left out. 50 years from now, nobody's going to know about Somalia, the Tongo ambush, Grenada, Panama. None of this is going to be talked about. Benghazi even. So what we're going to do today in various parts, because it would get way too long, is we're going to talk about all of them. I have written on a whiteboard in front of me the names of the wars and the years. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight, a little bit of commentary on most of them. Keep in mind, I haven't actually taken a class on this stuff in like 17 years. So if one of them interests you, you might want to fact check it a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. The Cherokee American War, 1776 to 1795. This is almost 20 years of minor skirmishes. If you want to know something cool about this, look up a guy named Dragon Canoe. The Northwest Indian War, 1785 to 1793. This was a war over the Northwest Territory. Keep in mind, this was the Northwest Territory at the time, so we're not talking about Washington and Oregon, we're talking about Ohio. We have Shays' Rebellion, 1786, 1787. That's an uprising over debts and taxes. The Whiskey Rebellion, 1791, 1794, also about taxes. The Quasi-War, at 1798 to 1800, at the end of the American Revolution, we owed the French money. When they had their revolution, we were like, it's a new government, we're not paying you. And they were like, yeah, you are. We had some naval battles. It didn't grow too much, but it was kind of a de facto quiet war, a quasi-war. You have Fry's Rebellion in 1799 to 1800, another tax revolt. The Barbary Wars, the First Barbary War was 1801 to 1805, pirates along the Med. The German Coast Uprising in 1811, this was a slave uprising near New Orleans. There were 2 whites that were killed, and in response, we killed 100 black people. Tecumseh's War, also 1811. Now, this was the end of the 60 Years' War. That was a war for the control of the Great Lakes. This is where we get the slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, and this pretty much caused the War of 1812. The War of 1812. In the U.S., this is a major event. This is one of the few wars we actually learn about. American historians will refer to it as America's Second Revolution because it secured our place on the international stage. Meanwhile, everywhere else in the world, this is a sideshow. This is a minor theater to the Napoleonic Wars. The Creek War, that's 1813 to 1814. This was an internal war with the Creek. The Spanish and the British were supporting Red Stick side, and the Americans were supporting the opposing Creeks. The big thing to come out of this, Andrew Jackson became a hero, became a war hero. Not such a great thing. The Second Barbary War, 1815, also pirates. First Seminole War, 1817 to 1818. This is when the Seminoles were sent to the reservation in Central Florida. Prior to that, they were up in Northwest Florida near Pensacola. The Texas Indian Wars, it's 1820 to 1875. to the real history buffs out there, yes, I understand some of the other conflicts that I'm going to talk about could just be filed under this, but I want to highlight that we're talking about 55 years of land grabs and ethnic cleansing. It was settlers versus natives. Let's see, the Iroquois War, that's 1823. I think this is one of the few native wars that wasn't over land, like directly. I want to say this had to do with the fur trade. What I do know is it was the first time the U.S. military was active west of the Missouri. You have the Aegean Sea operations in 1825 to 1828, more pirates. The Winnebago War, 1827, minor skirmishes. This one didn't get too crazy. The first Sumatran expedition in 1832. Some indigenous Indonesians attacked a merchant ship, and the U.S. Navy went there and exacted reprisal. The Black Hawk War in 1832. This one's actually really sad. There was some land that had been ceded to the U.S. government, and a native leader sees it. It's not being used, so he settles there with his people. The Americans in the area thought it was a prelude to an attack, and war commenced. The Second Seminole War, 1835 to 1842, this is when Jackson decided to move the Seminoles to Oklahoma. Second Sumatran Expedition, 1838. It's an exact replay of the first. A merchant ship was attacked. U.S. Navy went there to exact reprisals. The Pork and Beans War in 1839, or 1838 and 1839. The United States and the United Kingdom go to war over the border between Maine and New Brunswick, as if that's worth fighting over. So this was a joke even at the time. In this war, nobody died. We took some British soldiers, POW, and I think some Canadians might have got injured, but nobody died. The Ivory Coast Expedition in 1842, that's pirates again, but this is a little different. Merchant ships were getting attacked, but they're getting attacked along the Ivory Coast by people in war canoes. They might have had a good reason to fear white ships. Call me crazy. The squadron of ships that was there was actually there conducting anti-slavery operations, because by 1842, as far as the federal government was concerned, the transatlantic slave trade should stop. So that's a weird one. The Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. We annexed Texas. It triggered war. Let's see, the Cayos War, that's 1847 to 1855. Same old story, land grab. So now we're at 1850. We're not even to the Civil War yet. First 75 years. A lot more conflicts than get talked about. Granted, some of these weren't major, but some of them were huge. And they just get left out because we don't like why the war started. We don't like the outcome. We don't like how it paints us. So it doesn't get included. I think Veterans Day is probably a good day to talk about all these. So part 2 of this will be coming very, very soon because we're getting over our normal time limit. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.